Today we're going to talk about a facet of a healthy small group. And then the first one that I really want to cover in this is affinity. What do I mean by affinity? I mean the connection that humans naturally feel to each other when they have something in common. We love people that like or engage in the same kinds of things as we do. And so if you're going to work on a small group, you have to find the affinity, the connections that people have on particular things around them. And in this particular sense, I just want to emphasize something that doesn't get a lot of time and attention, but it is what communication professionals, what communication academics call phatic communication. You probably know it by its easier name, which is just small talk. Some people say, well, I'm not very good at small talk. I get that. But you need to realize how important it is. Small talk is actually the grease that makes almost all relationships get started and go smoothly and move forward. We are used to having conversations that just prove we're not crazy. Why is this important? Because when we first meet someone, we have a problem that's referred to as othering or otherness. That person is other. They're an unknown person. We don't know them. And when we look at that person and we say, well, I don't know them, they could be really nice, possibly. They could be crazy and want to kill me and steal all my stuff. Now, it's not likely that that's true, but in the back of our minds, we're still wrestling with what we don't know. The other is the unknown. So how do we bridge the gap between what we don't know? Well, they're going to kill me and steal all my stuff, or they're going to be really nice to me. We engage in low investment communication, small talk. We actually ask, hey, it's kind of hot out today. And the person says, yeah, it's hot. Okay, so you're not an alien from another planet. Well, I went to Florida a couple years ago and it was much hotter there. Oh, yeah, I've been to Florida. It's fantastic. Yeah, where'd you go? See what happened? We started developing things in common and you started becoming less unknown to me. And as we do that, I begin to trust you just a little bit more. The first seeds of trust are planted in affinity. So when it comes to a small group, how do we do this? Well, the first suggestion I would have for you is this. If you're going to start a small group and it's your first time with these people, I would suggest that you spend a bunch of time at the front end just allowing people to engage in small talk, just to walk around and say, hey, we're all in this room. Hey, everybody, we're just going to spend the next few minutes just getting to meet each other and say hi and engage in a little small talk. Find out where you're from. Oh, your kids go to the same school my kids go to. Oh, okay. See what happened? I just got to know you a little more. The next step, actually, usually for me in building small groups, tends to be a little more formal in that the first small group I actually spend asking every single person in the room to spend 3 to 5 minutes telling us all their story. Just tell me your story. How'd you get here? Where were you born, your family, whatever you want to share. And here's the upside. They can disclose as much or as little about themselves as they're willing to, but usually most people can say something about themselves in their life up to this point in 3 to 5 minutes, and then move on. Here's my suggestion to you. And we'll talk about this a little bit more when we talk about dialogue, but figure out the people who are the most talkative and let them go first so that other people can kind of get a sense of what that might look like to tell their story. In fact, if you're not sure who it is, maybe you should go first as the leader. But if you're going to build small groups, which I've had the privilege of building multiple small groups, both as a pastor, as an executive, and as a professor over the last several decades. And I've learned a really practical way based on affinity to put small groups together. And these small groups have hit most of the time. I would say somewhere between 85 and 90% of the time. These small groups work out extremely well, and some of them for years where they run extremely well because I started with affinity. What does that look like? It's a really simple exercise. If you know who's coming to say, I've got to make 4 or 5 small groups, and you know who's coming, send them all an email or a postcard or something like that. Or even if you've got them in the same room, give them a postcard. I do this with my students sometimes. Put a postcard in front of them. It doesn't have to be big. Ask them to write 4 to 5 people that they would like to be with in a small group. Now, you don't ask them for the full size of the small group because you don't know who's going to be there and you've got to be able to have some wiggle room. 4 to 5 people on a card or an email that tells them who they'd like to be with, who'd you prefer to be with. And you tell them very clearly, like, I'm not guaranteeing that you will be with all of these people, but I will try to make sure that at least some of the people on your list are in your small group. With one caveat, I also ask, is there one person in this particular larger group of people that you would prefer not to be on a small group with? You say, well, wait, what does that mean? It means that they already have a relationship with that person prior that has baggage or something else that's going to hinder the capacity for that small group to trust each other and engage. Sometimes that's as simple as, it's my brother and I'd prefer not to be in a small group with my brother. I like my brother, but I don't want to be in a small group with him. Or my sister. Sometimes it's an ex-boyfriend or an ex-girlfriend if you're dealing with students. Sometimes it's these two people work together and they prefer not to be in a small group where they're going to share intimate information and know that that might get carried into their work. There's lots of reasons they might prefer not to be in a small group with a person, but if you can start with affinity and give them agency, the capacity to make choices about how they make that small group, you generally find that these small groups go better over time because you started with affinity and you use that affinity to begin seeding trust. And as people start to trust one another, they start to open up, and that's when we begin to see healthier small groups.